Srinivas, good morning.
You are off. Morning, morning.
Can you
Good
one
morning,
second?
everybody.
We are just making sure we can all hear you. Go ahead. We can hear? Okay. Srinivas, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Zainul Bhai. How are you? And good morning, friends who have joined us from all over the country and also from Lucknow. It's a great honor to be here with all of you, with Adil and my friend, colleague, and batchmate, Mr. Srinivas, who's also there in Lucknow. And I hope my other batchmate, Mr. Devesh Chaturvedi, is also there. So greetings to all of you from Mussoorie, Labasana. My job has been made very easy because Adil has already given you a broad contour of the Karma Yogi program. And in the introduction also, I think you have received a fair amount of understanding about the other aspects of the program. And I understand that yesterday you had some sensitization about the digital platform, which is IGOT, Integrated Government Online Training. So I will try and quickly give you a summation and an overview of what this program is all about, what it is aiming to do, and what perhaps as administrative training institutes of the state governments, all of us could do to collectively contribute to this, both not only the service of the nation, but to nation building. The Karma Yogi mission honestly began many, many years ago. But in the central government, it began with the visit of the Honorable Prime Minister to LBS NAA on the 26th of October, 2017. That was the transformative and the defining moment when the entire thinking about capacity building, the training architecture, etc., underwent a huge shift. Honorable Prime Minister was here with us in LBS for close to 24 hours on 26th night, and he stayed on till 27th late evening, interacted with all the OTs, gave a huge amount of guidance in terms of how the nation aspires to grow and what, as civil servants, all of us are expected to discharge and do. A year later, this was again discussed, a lot of work went on. On 31st of October 2019, a phenomenal shift happened where the Arambh program was started in Kevadia, where we have the National Memorial to Sardar Patel. And there he gave a call to the nation. And in that call, he described what is the shape of an ideal civil servant of India, who I would like to say is the Karma Yogi who is in service of the nation. And he identified these various attributes. You can read them there, but I'll quickly point out. The Karma Yogi should be proactive and polite. He should be professional and progressive. He should be energetic and enabling. He should be transparent and tech-enabled, creative and constructive, imaginative and innovative. With this large direction that the Honorable PM gave from Kevadia on the 31st of October, the entire Karma Yogi program started getting ideated, started getting structured, and we have now not only the program in position, but some of the important institutional elements of the program are also in place. And we have just heard the Honorable Chairperson of the Capacity Building Commission, Adil. Friends, yesterday, the Honorable Minister, Dr. Jitendra Singh, who has been guiding us, has called all of us Karma Yogis. When we look at ourselves and see how many of us are there, it is stunning to realize that there are close to 20 million of us, more than 2.21 million, that's about 2.1 crores, which if you look at it in terms of size of countries in the world, we are slightly around the size of Sri Lanka. We could be slightly bigger or slightly smaller, but the entire population of Sri Lanka is the civil servants of India, that is the Karma Yogis of India. The big challenge, therefore, is how do you enable all these civil servants to transition and start discharging the responsibilities that the Honorable Prime Minister had indicated to us And especially, why should we be doing all of it? Why were we not able to do things the way we were doing earlier? Here are some of the challenges that many of you are familiar, but for the purpose of contextualization, the challenges today is with the emergence of digital technologies, the citizen who is our final arbiter of our fate and judges our performance is used to a different scale and nature of delivery. It's a click and touch and push and deliver type of an environment in which public services have to be delivered, governance services have to be delivered. Second, how do you deliver citizen-centric government? That is another big challenge, especially when you have to align the whole of a government approach in such a huge civil service architecture. And if I quickly go back, we can see here that the civil servants are distributed at various levels. In the center, you have the non-defense civil servants, you have the defense-related civil servants, you have the state governments, and you have the local bodies. And added to this are what you might call other temporary hires. So we are not even talking about the temporary hires here. Aage badhiye, please. So the kind of challenges that the civil service faces in terms of the geopolitical challenges, the diversity, the black swan events that we have encountered. Last year, we had this entire COVID challenge. And it is a very heartening thing for all of us that when COVID hit us, it was the IGOT that was utilized to respond to the COVID phenomenon. And in no time, more than 15 lakh employees, civil servants all over the country were trained on the IGOT platform. And this was a proof of concept. So all of this really means that when we have to deliver public services in the new world order, we have to have different skills. We have to have more collaboration. We have to think differently in a decentralized manner. We all are aware of the diversity of the governance architecture. We have the central governments, we have the state government, we have the union territories, we have the autonomous bodies, we have the urban local bodies, we have the Zilla Panchayats, we have the PSUs, the state PSUs, and so on and so forth, where all of us are working in different parts, during different parts of our, or different times of our career, and simultaneously the entire civil service is distributed. So therefore, it has also resulted in a kind of a variegated, I would not say a fragmented bureaucracy, but it is definitely a diverse bureaucracy that consists of all India services, central services, state services, unorganized services, civilian services in the armed forces, and so on and so forth. Which also means that each of this service is not only answering a specific requirement, but it is also having its own set of roles. It has its own set of competencies that are required. It is addressing a set of citizen needs, which have to be responded to and delivered. At the same time, you find that all these services have their own separate growth paths. They have their own different service rules, and all of them are differently positioned and spread geographically all over the country. Next, please. Now, to build capacity for such a diverse landscape of civil service, we also have a diverse landscape of capacity building. So you have a lot of all the administrative training institutions for the states. Many states have sub-ATI level, that is, at the district level, they have ATI branches working. Then you have a lot of CTIs in the central government itself. In fact, we're not even talking about their scientific organizations and their training institutions. And each and every one of these institutions builds on its own capability, capacity, builds its faculty, and in its own manner tries to discover how to do this. So all of this has led to a kind of a department-specific vision. It has led to an inability to share resources, not knowing what the other person is doing. And it also perhaps has led to a lot of redundancy and duplication of efforts. So this was the diverse architecture that has led to the creation of silos. Next, please. The Mission Karmayogi really was an answer to this diversity. It was an answer to the complexity, and it was an answer to the dynamism, because it is a constantly changing landscape. And just now we heard Adil say that the shift of rule to role was one of the fundamental transformational shifts in our thinking. Now, what does that mean? It means all of us during the course of the day are discharging different functions. We don't do the same thing from the morning till evening. So when you're doing different things during the day, we are discharging different roles. Each one is dynamic. Each one needs specific skill sets. So how do you enable a person who's discharging a specific role at that moment to have competency and understanding and ability to discharge well to that role? So this was the fundamental question that had a great answer in the ability of government and public systems now to harness digital technology. So the iGOT is a very, very core element of this entire architecture, because now that we have the ability to deliver digitally learning to the person at that particular job, we were able to visualize this Mission Karma Yogi. So Mission Karma Yogi, therefore, is this sum totality of the whole thinking, which intends to build a future-ready civil service. Now, let me take you to the left side of this slide. Perhaps this is the most important slide that I'd like to talk about, because this captures the entire concept of Mission Karma Yogi. On the first, you will see that it is a competency-led capacity building. What it means is, to each one of the role, you need to map what is the competency that is required, and to the competency you have to identify what is the specific induction, specific input that you require. So I would say a course, and on that basis you have the delivery of performance. So this entire basis of competency being identified, being mapped to a specific course, being mapped to what kind of capacity is getting created, is one of the key elements of this program. The second is, in the larger frame of things, when you have such a diverse architecture, diverse civil service, variegated civil service, how do you align thinking to the larger national objectives? How do you start thinking not in the same manner, not about the same thing, but in a shared manner? Because we all need to understand our priorities. We all need to work in a harmoniously aligned manner. So that is the second important thing. Third is a big problem that we have always had. First of all, how do you evaluate? And secondly, how do you ensure that the evaluation is objective, fair, and transparent? So these were again issues that have been addressed and are being hopefully resolved in a very reasonable time frame through the larger architecture of the Mission Karma Yogi. Now, this has led to what is the nature of the government servant. I have identified and indicated to you what the Honorable Prime Minister has told us about the qualities or attributes. But here, when you see the civil servant, you see there are three dimensions to the whole thing. One, every civil servant has certain targets. He has a purpose. So therefore, he has goals. Now, in order for him to discharge to that goal, he needs to understand what are the domain roles, what is the domain knowledge that he needs, what are the functional competencies that are required for him to really discharge well to the domain. You heard Adil say that if there is a ticket collector whose fundamental domain function is to manage the entire ticketing function of the railway system, and while doing so, if he does not know, let us say if a new technology is inducted and you're having electronic ticketing, and for electronic ticketing, you need a certain skill, and the ticket collector does not have that skill, there is a mismatch. So for him to be efficient to his goal, he has to have this ability. So this is the small example that you can think of. And finally, the most important is the citizen-facing citizen centricity comes out of our behavior. How do we deal with our citizens? How do we interact with them? So this encompasses a range of attributes. We will talk about some of them, but all of these together would translate into these three large thrusts of the government: ease of living, ease of doing business, and citizen centricity. So broadly, this is what the Mission Karma Yogi is trying to achieve. Next, please. The goals, you have heard that to shift from rules to roles-based HR management, to increase citizen centricity and governance outcomes, to ensure through a process of training that hopefully every person doing the job is the right person doing that. Today, we do not have that ability. With the harnessing power that we will have of digital technologies, we might be able to identify people who are relevant to specific jobs and then use that pool for posting. So the right person to the right job. I spoke about creating shared national aspirations, making learning resources a shared environment. In the past, because we were doing it in a physical mode, whether at the state ATI or at the central ATIs, whether at LBS or any other place, because we did not have the digital delivery of capacity, most of the training used to be physical. So we were doing close to 80 to 85%. And during my experience as both Joint Secretary and Additional Secretary of Training, a number that I computed at that point in time was what was the total number of civil servants that we were able to train on an annualized basis. It was coming to not more than 20,000. For a country of our size and for a civil service, which is 58th in the globe, we were able to train about 20,000 people. And some of the initial forays and the initial experiments that we carried out, as Adil mentioned, I discovered to my utter dismay and amazement, there were functionaries and officers who had not been trained even once throughout their life after their brief induction. So this was something that was getting shifted. So now learning, knowledge is available to those who seek it, and it is democratized. So this hierarchy of knowledge is broken, and it is enabling the unleashing of a lot of power. So I spoke about the identification of competencies and the lifelong learning that Adil spoke about. But the most important thing about the iGOT architecture, the digital learning platform, is to enable all of this to happen. It is to enable a learner to learn anytime that at a time of his choice, at a place of his choice, anywhere, and on any device. He can learn on his iPad, he can learn on his mobile, he can sit in front of the office computer and learn, or he can go home and learn there. So it is giving a lot of flexibility to the learner, and you're mapping the learning to his competencies. Next, please. Broadly, these are the key program components. A lot of this has been spoken about. I don't want to talk about, but I mention here these three things, that every set of competencies have been broken into three parts: behavior, domain, and functional. Behavior, as we would understand, is our communication, our approach, our attitude, and how we interact, etc., etc. That would encompass a whole range of attributes, starting from how do you write to how do you speak, how do you comport yourself, and so on and so forth. And in the larger Mission Karma Yogi architecture, the DOPT has assumed responsibility to do this. So the behavior dimension is something that the DOPT is doing. Domain and function is being done by each of the technical departments. There are 84 departments of the Government of India. So 83 of them, each one will be carrying this out. Next, please. Mission Karma Yogi, you have seen this. Adil has already spoken about it. Next, please. The HR Council that Adil has spoken about, I'd only like to point out one small thing here. You will see and notice here that in the structure of the PM's HR Council, there is a space for potential inclusion, co-option of the state chief ministers. So as and when this gets constituted, it is a part of the plan that different states by turn would start participating. And that is where the co-option of the ATIs would happen. So at the moment, you might be asking yourself, are we a part of the program? Well, yes and no, but I would not like to double guess what the thinking is in the Capacity Building Commission. But I would definitely think that the moment the state onboards itself and has a place at the table, it then becomes definitely a part of the program. So this is the apex level architecture. Next, please. This is the online digital platform. Again, I don't want to talk because I've explained it. Next. Now, the rule to role, as a small example, we try to illustrate this. So if you see the individual who is, let us say, a deputy secretary in the personnel department, if he has to release some grants, then he has to know about what is budgeting, what are the rules of budgeting, What are the rules of audit? So in budgeting, you will have to understand the larger principles of public finance. Some of my colleagues who are from the ISTM would be well aware because some of this template was developed in the ISTM. For public accountability, it involves behavioral dimensions. For the purpose of public finance, it is functional dimensions. So from this whole position, if you start seeing it at the bottom bar, the individual, his position, his role, his activity, his competency, and the detailed competency is the kind of a thing that all the ATIs will have to start thinking in preparation for the eventual onboarding of the state governments. Because unless the state governments do not onboard, the larger ambition of the Mission Karma Yogi, that is to address the entire civil service of the country, which is 21 odd million, will not come true. So as a preparation, you need to be aware that this is some of the alignment you would like to start doing. Later on, I'll give an illustration of how the state of Uttar Pradesh itself has started doing some things. I will talk about it. Next, please. This mission also seeks to overcome some of the deficiency of the Indian training system. All of you have have experienced this problem because we don't know how much impact is there, and because learning is dispersed, it is on a cafeteria-based approach. The inability to exponentially expand our impact is not there. So all these things are now, perhaps, hopefully, things of the past. With the new Karma Yogi architecture, you will be able to get a better bang for your effort. Next. Here is where I'd like to spend a few minutes on what should the state ATIs do. And here again, I'm double guessing a little bit. So I hope Adil will also join in once he comes in. My understanding is when we are talking about shifting from the role to role, the state should also start looking at this. How do you do the competency mapping exercise? What are the competencies for the various state cadres? How do you start addressing some of these issues? How do you start identifying what are the different hierarchies of competencies, skills, sub-minor skills, etc., so that you are able to map the role to the set of competencies that are needed in the cadres that you service. In this, I must add one more thing. All of you are aware that you are constantly in touch with the LBS because there are two cadres that we directly deal with who are a part of this Mission Karma Yogi. And that is why LBS could align some of our work, which Adil has mentioned, to the All India Services and the Central Services cadres. So the ATIs interface with two cadres that come to the central government. Number one, the All India Services. You have the IAS, the IPS, and the Forest Service, plus the feeder cadre to the IAS, which are the state civil services. So this is one place where there is a alignment that we could talk about. I think as we go forward, we should think about it. How, and in any case, we are already engaged with between the ATI and the LBS as a part of the overall training architecture of the All India Services. The second is, when the iGOT platform comes alive, the entire content is crowdsourced. It has to be not only crowdsourced, it has to be crowd updated, it has to be validated, it has to be peer reviewed and used. I think this is a huge space for the state ATIs. Adil did hint when he was speaking that when ATIs like say Telangana, or let us say Yashada, which is in my view one of the best in the country, come on board and start curating the courses, start curating material, start preparing the material in the bite-sized mode that Adil mentioned about, 3 minute, 5 minute, and make it available. What would then happen is the power of a platform gets unleashed, it gets released. So this is a second space that the ATIs could do this. Third, you'll have to also at the state levels, look at how do you harmonize your own policies for capacity building of the DOPT cadres and All India Services, which I spoke about. You'll have to build faculty competence because you have to keep your faculties ready so that as and when the state government's on board, as and when you become a part of the larger architecture of the Mission Karma Yogi, you will need to respond in a much more decisive way than perhaps you are currently. And secondly, you will also have to naturally look at how you are doing your different functions and monitor the progress. So coming back to my first point, that is, which are the state cadres that you can start taking up immediately? And you'll have to look at the behavioral, the domain, and the functional competencies. Behavioral, by and large, you will get a sense of what is happening as and when the DOPT starts publishing its documents. One of the first documents that were published about behavior happened in the transitional period. And towards the end of that period, even Mr. Devesh Chaturvedi was in the DOPT, so he's aware of it. But you can get some degree of understanding and signaling from the DOPT action, and specifically even perhaps LBS action. So we'll be too happy to partner and share whatever we are doing. But the domain and function, which are specific to the states, is something you will have to disaggregate yourself and clarify. Next, please. At this point, I want to give you an example of what happened in the state of Uttar Pradesh. See, in the state of Uttar Pradesh, in the year 2019, July 26th, they came out with this report in partnership with the Johns Hopkins University, etc., because they were looking at what are the competencies that are required for public health systems in Uttar Pradesh. Now, this was the first issue. And then they went through this entire exercise. This document is available on the public domain, and I'm sure the state ATI of Uttar Pradesh can make it available for you. After a detailed exercise, they have identified these 8 verticals, 8 blocks: public health sciences, assessment and analytics, policy, program and management, financial management and budgeting, partnerships and collaborations, social cultural determination, communication and leadership. So these were identified as the large buckets. Next, please. And why did they want to do it? To the left, you will see, and this is, I've taken it from that report itself, you will see that like all other states and like our country also, we face huge resource crunch. Certainly manpower crunch is a feature of the Indian administration everywhere. So here, against a norm of 41 trained public health officials per 10,000, the state of Uttar Pradesh has 9.1. Now, how do you make the 9.1 health workers deliver to scale of the 40, if not 40, at least 35, is the challenge that they try to transcend. And this is how they have listed out, through this exercise, they have listed out a preliminary list of 40 competency statements. And this they distributed across 8 domains. So, for example, the first domain, which is public health sciences, they have disaggregated into 4 parts. So the 4 competency statements are: demonstrate knowledge about the concepts of health status of population, inequities in health, determinants of health and illness, strategies for health promotion, factors that influence delivery and use of health services, etc. So the large governing kind of principles. In assessments and analysis, they're talking about what are identification of relevant information, including community resources. How do you use that data for public health issues? How do you analyze that information to determine appropriate implications? So what we are doing, and we can see here, they have slowly started going down and down. Next, please. Then there is a kind of a frac that was done for nurses. Now, if you see here, it is fairly small. I'll read out some of it. So in competency C1, which is about the knowledge about various competencies.
Srinivas, I don't know if you can hear me, but I think these charts don't show well on the screen here.
So they don't.
Yeah. So people are having a little trouble following. Perhaps you could just explain those and then maybe take a few minutes and wrap up.
I'm doing that. In fact, it is a very detailed kind of a chart. I just wanted to give them a sense of how this was done in Uttar Pradesh, and the report is available in public domain. So the description of competency number 1, which was about what are the various components of obstetric clinical history, how can GPLA, MPLA, etc., past medical history, how will that impact a nurse? Now, at the level of the nurse, they are looking at referring to the respective station post. They're talking about examination of the patient's vitals and abdominal examination. You can see the detailing that is going on. So similarly, if this is an example, each and every one of the cadres, each and every one of the functions of the cadres and the roles that have to be discharged have to be disaggregated so that training relevant to that particular function can then be built. This was the short point I wanted to make. And with this, I would like to conclude here, and then I'm available to take questions. Thank you very much.